Specialized has updated its Diverge range, and this is one of the new bikes that I have here. Now, updates include new geometry for better off-road handling, the introduction of SWAT on the down tube there from their mountain bike range, introduction of Future Shock 2.0 that you'll recognise from the Roubaix, as well as a brand new flat bar Evo model. Now, I'll come on to all of this and more in this video, but just a note to say this isn't a full review. I haven't had enough time to do a comprehensive rundown of this bike just yet, so consider this a first look piece, but rest assured a review will come in the coming months. Now, let's get into it. Now, the old Diverge sort of sat as this halfway house model between on-road riding and off-road riding. But Specialized, noticing that the gravel market is always changing, have looked to step into it more fully and create a bike that's more capable when riding off-road. Now, to do that, they've made some significant changes to the bike's geometry over the old model. For starters, they've lengthened the wheelbase, so it increases from 1011mm up to 1042mm. That is enough to add greater stability when you're riding off-road. They've also slackened the head angle, so it drops from 72.5 degrees to 71.25 degrees. Now, that's not massively dramatic in any way, but it should be enough, Specialized are hoping, to shore up handling when riding down steep slopes. Finally, they've raised the bike's bottom bracket by 5mm, so it now has a bottom bracket drop of 80mm rather than 85mm on the old model. Now, Specialized said that they were finding that riders were having too many pedal strikes when riding the old model, especially when they were running it with 650B wheels. Now, I would say that these geometry changes certainly represent Specialized's desire to jump from a road-going brand, even with their old Diverge model, much more fully into the gravel and adventure scene and proper off-road riding. And it's sort of paving the way for other bikes to follow as everyone sort of feels out what the adventure market is actually going to be like. So Specialized have also increased the bike's tyre clearances, so on 700C wheels like I have here, you can run 47mm tyres, although these tyres are 38mm. And if you want to run the bike in 650B form, you can run 2.1 inch tyres. Now, if you did want to run this bike on the road, Specialized recommend that the minimum widths you should look to use is 28mm. So followers of Specialized bikes will recognise the term Future Shock, and especially Future Shock 2.0, which was first debuted on the new Roubaix, and now it is debuting on the Diverge. So Future Shock 2.0 exists on the S-Works model, the Pro model, the Expert model, and the Carbon Comp model that I have here. And it provides 20mm of hydraulic compression in the sleeve underneath the stem, and it's tunable through a lockout on top. Now, all the other models come with Future Shock 1.5, which uses a spring instead of hydraulic compression. The idea behind it is to reduce fatigue, so the less fatigue a rider has in their arms, the less fatigue they're going to feel overall, and potentially the less mistakes they're going to make when riding off-road. Now, fans of Specialized mountain bike range will also recognise the name SWAT, and it refers to this little hole or compartment in the down tube. Now, this is a really cool feature, and I'll show you how it works. It sits underneath the bottle cage. You pop it open like that, and that lifts off like a lid. And then in here is a space for you to basically store anything you might want out on the trails. So Specialized ship it with this little bag, and inside here you get a tool and you get a little frame, so it clips into your tyre levers, your CO2 canister, and I've got a tube as well. Now, the best thing about this is it doesn't take up all the space in there. So it fits in, it's quite snug so as to not rattle around when you're riding. Goes in like so, and then basically there's space on top of that to include anything that you might consider a trail essential. So that could be a jacket, first aid kit. Now, if you took out that little bag and didn't replace it, you could fit a whole baguette in there if you wanted. Food for thought. Anyway, it's really cool, and it just takes the weight out of your pockets and puts it onto the bike to give you a more comfortable riding experience. So SWAT is available on the S-Works, the Pro, the Expert, and the Carbon Comp models, and any model below that goes without, unfortunately. Now, one other thing that's worth mentioning that isn't on this particular model, but is on the top end S-Works model, is that it does ship with a dropper post as well, which is a really cool feature and shows the sort of aggressive terrain that Specialized are hoping you might ride this bike over. Now, I'll just mention the different types of frame and carbon and aluminium used on the Diverge. There are a few models and I'll run through them all. At the top end on the S-Works, there is an 11R carbon frame. Now that is one below the Tarmac, which uses a 12R carbon, but it is the same as the Venge. Now below that is the 9R, which is used on the Expert, the Pro and the Comp carbon. And then one below that is the 8R, which is used on the Sport and the Base model. Then there are a whole host of aluminium frames, all of which use Specialized E5 aluminium, the same as that used on its Alley models, for example. Now, there are some final finishing details that make this bike ready to ride off-road. For starters, it has this new down tube protection here to protect from rock strikes. It has protection on the chainstay to prevent chain slap, and it has a positively abundant supply of water bottle mounts. There's a water bottle mount here, there's a water bottle mount on top of the SWAT door, there's a mount on top of the top tube, and then there are two more mounts on either side of the fork. Also hidden away out of view are fender mounts here and on the seat stays as well, should you want to run this through the winter and give yourself a bit of extra protection. Now, I'll talk a little bit about that flat bar Evo model that has also been released. So this is a new model of the Diverge that Specialized say represents that gravel is constantly changing and that there are people tackling some seriously tough terrain on gravel bikes. So the Diverge Evo is a flat bar model of this bike with some tweaked geometry, has 30mm longer reach and has a slacker head angle still, and it also comes with a dropper post as well. Future Shock is still present, and that is the only form of suspension on there. You wouldn't want this to be accused of being a hardtail mountain bike from the late 90s and early noughties. So the particular model that I have here is a Specialized Diverge Comp Carbon, and it retails at £3,349. Now it has a Fact 9R carbon frame, it comes with Future Shock 2.0, and it has SWAT in the down tube as well. Rolls on DT Swiss G540 wheels and uses Specialized Pathfinder tyres and a Shimano GRX drive chain. It uses a 31 tooth and a 48 tooth chainring setup, and on the rear it has an 11 to 34 cassette. Now the GRX rear derailleur has a clutch to help keep it stable, and it's a long cage design to better accommodate that wider selection of gears. So in comparison, at the top end, the S-Works model costs £8,849. It's a SRAM affair. There's a ETAP AXS shifters, SRAM derailleur. It's a single ring on that top model. And there's also a smattering of SRAM's mountain biking Eagle components, including on the super wide cassette. It rolls on Roval's wheels instead of these DT Swiss models, and it comes with a dropper post by X-Fusion as standard. So there you go, that is the Specialized Diverge updated to represent an altogether, on paper at least, more aggressive off-road bike. It'll be interesting in testing how the changes in geometry come across and how it affects the bike's handling, and also how it affects the bike's on-road handling. It'll be interesting to see the differences that they make. Now, if you have liked this video, do leave us a comment in the comment section below, drop us a thumbs up or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And likewise, if you have any questions, let us know and we'll do our best to answer them. Now, we'll be back soon with more exciting launch videos, so keep your eyes peeled for them. But until then, take care and we'll see you next time.